Why would you do that to me? At least try to make it not bad. That's not even who he is. What's happening? Hey, thank you so much for clicking on this video. This is Read Rant Review, where, you guessed it, I read books and I do rant reviews. Usually I review a book that you guys vote for. I put up a poll every Friday with like 3 options. You guys pick and I read it. Last week, the books were so horrendous that I willingly read a Colleen Hoover book. We'll talk about it in a minute. Today, we're going to be talking about LAYLA by Colleen Hoover. This book was published in 2020, 305 pages, and is another one of her little thrillery, paranormal, romancy, verity adjacent type books. This one is definitely a lot less known. So I'm going to talk about it today. It's crazy. It honestly, though, probably her best book that I've read. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying it's probably the best of hers that I've read. So I am excited to talk about it today. And with that, the one caveat that I would like to note before we begin is one of my amazing subscribers, Kelly, made a bingo card for Colleen Hoover books. Yes, they all have such repeated tropes, such as Cancer, the main female character moving in with the main male character, questionable LGBT rep, questionable mental health rep. I'm trying to think of what the other ones are. And SA, I think, like the main male character harming the main female character, and a couple other things that you just see it a lot. The link for the bingo card is in the description box below if you would like to play along while you watch or listen to this video. Anyway, so with that being said, the 3 books that I was going to do, the 3 books that were in the poll last week, they are Amazon like #1 trending books. One was Feathers So Vicious. I got 20% of the way through and it was all just SA. The first like 5 pages, there was 2 separate assault scenes and then like an unaliving of a character, and I said, nah. Not for me, my guy. I think I'm okay. The other book that I tried to read was something about vampires. I'll put up a screenshot of the poll. But that one, I literally got 20% through, and it was the stupidest main female character I've ever read in my entire life. It's one of those books where you read her words, and you just know that she's like, oh my God, I can't believe you guys are all supernatural. I'm just like, I'm so amazed. You're just like so attractive and hot. Like, oh my God. One of those, like, you know that's how she talked. And that could be applicable to both of the other books. One of them is about vampires. She like goes to a university and all of the fraternities and sororities are different, like supernatural beings, I think. And she like ends up with a wide shoes with the vampire fraternity. I thought it might be good, but it was not. I was very sad. And then the last one was Zodiac Academy, which y'all were vocal about not wanting me to review that one, and I got, again, 20% of the way through, and I said, nah, yeah, you guys are right. We'll do something else. So we're here with LAYLA. Before I begin the actual review of LAYLA, I have the same 3 disclaimers that I have on all of my videos. The first one being, this will contain all of the spoilers. My reviews are chapter by chapter, beat by beat, breakdowns of these books. So if you would actually want to read this, I'll catch you in the next one. The second disclaimer is that this review is not for Colleen Hoover. This will inherently be negative, and I'm just here having a good time. I'm just here having a little giggle. You know what I mean? Don't take this seriously. And then the third disclaimer is usually a content or trigger warning that I like to put on these videos. I have a timestamp below if you would like to skip this portion of the video for one reason or another. And yeah, from what I found online, it has listed as abuse, foul language, graphical spice scenes, which I will not be detailing, unaliving, SA, and drug use. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers all of it. Like I said, I try to keep the tone of these videos pretty light, so keep that in mind. Our book opens with, I believe it's called an epitaph. It's like a little quote before the book begins. Nothing could be more Colleen Hoover. It says, "The supernatural is the natural not yet understood," which, by Albert Hubbard, I'm sure is an incredibly valid quote. I'm sure he's a very intelligent man, but I just read that in the same voice that I read the rest of Colleen Hoover's books, and doesn't set us up for very good. So arguably the craziest cold open to a Colleen Hoover book leads the main male character in this book, so we can go ahead and check off that whole bingo box for stupid names. It says, "I placed 2 layers of duct tape over LAYLA's mouth before I came downstairs, but I can still hear her muffled screams as the detective takes a seat at the table." And I said, let me just buckle in real quick. What do you mean? She is just screaming LAYLA is his girlfriend. She's chained to a bed up the stairs, yelling her head off, and the detective just says, hey, tell me how you guys met. Let's just get started there. In response to this ridiculous request, I rest my elbows on the table and slide my palms over my ears to drown out the sounds that LAYLA is making upstairs. I can't take hearing her upset like this. I love her so much, but I don't know that I can go back and talk about why I love her so much when I'm putting her through this. I try not to think about how perfect things were in the beginning. When I do that, it solidifies the fact that I'm more than likely at fault for how it has all come to an end. You're the one that chained her to a bed. I mean, probably. I close my eyes and think back to the first night that I met her, back when life was easier, when ignorance really was bliss. She was a terrible dancer, I say to the man. It's the first thing I noticed about her. In chapter 1, it's a flashback to how Leeds and LAYLA met. Leeds was I believe, bass player for a band that he was in that he hated being in. He absolutely hated his life, but he did it for fun, maybe out of obligation. Honestly, I don't understand why he was a part of this band. Dude came from a lot of money. He has a lot of money in his bank account, but he's just out here hoofing it, acting like, a struggling artist. He's from Nashville, Tennessee. That's where the band is located out of. And they got a call to go out to a place called Corazon de País, which is the heart of the country, located dead center in the middle of the United States of America. Okay, so according to my 10-second Google research, that would put us in a place called Agra, Kansas. Okay, interesting. They were specifically requested to give this musical performance at a wedding at this Corazon de País. And while performing, and him hating his life and looking miserable, he looks out into the crowd, and there is only one person dancing. Everybody else is just chit-chatting and drinking and, the usual wedding reception stuff. And it's LAYLA. And she's out there just dancing bad enough that is the first thing that he notices about her. Maybe it's because she's the only one on the dance floor. Maybe she's actually not a bad dancer. Why does she have to be a bad dancer? Because we have to feed into this quirky girl, manic pixie dream girl nonsense. Because God forbid, sorry, we're already getting worked up. God forbid Colleen Hoover write a normal, a likable main female character. They all have to be this quirky little crazy girl. You can have unique personality traits without coming across as this I don't have words, but whatever this head motion is for the descriptor of the type of women that Colleen Hoover writes about, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. They can, hey man, no. Please stop. Anyway, so he is immediately, of course, infatuated with LAYLA, and he just can't take his eyes off of her. So once the band is done playing for the night, he puts his instruments away, and then he goes out to get a drink and hopefully find LAYLA. Of course, this bitch is floating in the pool with her clothes on, just staring at the sky. And so he comes over to her, puts his feet in the pool. They have a little bit of back and forth, and again, in true Colleen Hoover fashion, not a realistic conversation in any way whatsoever. Oh, wait, hold on. So I have this one note highlighted about why he's a part of this band. If people knew how little was required of me in this life, I wouldn't be respected. Maybe that's why I've stayed with the band. It's a lot of travel, a lot of work, a lot of late nights, but the self-torture makes me feel like I at least deserve a portion of what sits in my bank account. Hey, why don't you give back to the community? Why don't you volunteer at a food bank? Why aren't you giving your money away to people who need it or spending your time benefiting your community? Self-torturing in a band? I feel like there's a lot of better ways to spend your time if you have enough money in the bank that you don't need to work. Significantly better ways to spend your time. So they're in the pool, right? He's kicking his little feetsies and she's floating around. And so she randomly rolls over and she's like, do you ever watch those YouTube videos of people dying inside? I have no idea why she asks that question, but anything could have come out of her mouth just now and it would have moved through me with the same strength those words just did. Her voice is wispy and light, like it floats effortlessly out of her throat. No. She says, they're compilations of embarrassing things that happen to people. The camera always zooms in on people's faces at the worst moment. Their expressions make it look like they're dying inside. She wipes water from her eyes with both hands. That's what you look like up there tonight. You were dying inside? I'm already dead inside. I died the first night I started playing for the band. He goes on to say, you know what? Actually, I'm just going to read you this conversation so you can understand what this is, okay? He says, I'm already dead inside, blah, blah, blah. She says, I thought so. Did you like my dancing? I was trying to cheer you up. It worked. You got a girlfriend? No. Boyfriend? No. Wife? I shake my head. Do you have friends at least? Not really, I admit. Sibling? Only child. Shit, you're lonely. Another accurate assessment, although in my case, lonely is a choice. Who's the most important person in your life? Parents don't count. Right now? She nods. Yeah, right now. Who is the most important person in your life? I reflect on our question for a moment and realize that there's no one that I would take a bullet for other than my mom. I'm indifferent toward the guys in the band. They're more like coworkers I have nothing in common with, and since parents don't count, this girl is literally the only person on my mind right now. I guess you, I say. She tilts her head back, narrowing her eyes. That's kind of sad. That's kind of sad. Oh, hey, at least she's real for that. Like, at least she spoke some type of truth before we get into the absolute nonsense that's about to happen. She goes back onto floating. You know, they're talking whatever. Her sister, who is the bride, right? Her sister is Aspen. Aspen and her husband just got married. So she comes over and she says, hey, like, Layla, come here. And gives her a pill. She takes it. And then she says, oh, Leeds wants one too. Can you give one to him? So she does, right? So Layla puts the pill on his tongue and he's like, it's dissolving immediately because of her wet fingers. And then he is like, oh my God, I'm tripping balls. He like gets in the pool with her. You know, they're like making out underwater and he's just like, oh my God, my heart is beating so fast. It's going to burst out of my chest. This is the craziest thing I've ever done. I've never taken drugs like this before. This is insane. They get out of the pool to go and like make out some more over in the corner or whatever. And he says, the grass is both cold and soft beneath my feet, like ice, but melted. I guess that would just make it water, but it doesn't feel like water. It feels like melted ice. Drugs make things hard to explain. So they go on, you know, making out over in the corner or doing whatever. And he says, everything is way too much. Like, I'm teetering on the edge of death. My heart just might literally explode in my chest. I'm starting to wonder if we keep doing this. If we should keep doing this. Drugs coupled with making out with Layla is one thing too much. I can't let her stay wrapped around me for another second or I'll pass the out and everything that I'm feeling. It's like every nerve ending grew a nerve ending. I feel everything with double the magnitude. I have to stop. I whisper, unwrapping her legs from around me. What the hell are we on? I can't breathe. I roll into my back, gasping for air. You mean, what did my sister give you? The bride is your sister? Yeah, her name's Aspen, 3 years older than me, blah, blah, blah. Why? Do you not like it? I nod. Yeah, I love it. It's intense, right? Yeah. Aspen gives it to me every time I drink too much. She leans in until her mouth is against my ear. It's called aspirin. When she pulls back, the confusion on my face makes her grin. Did you think you were high? Dude, the secondhand cringe. So, like, I can't watch certain TV shows or movies or anything that has like secondhand embarrassment because it makes me want to claw my eyes out. And so every time I read this section, bro, the way I want to flip a table, he was on aspirin. Oh, so they just move right on past that. I'm pretty sure at that point, if I was Layla, I would be like, yeah, you're kind of a square. And also, no offense, no judgment, no whatever. I just feel like CoHo has probably never done a drug in her life. But what do I know? Hey, you know, I don't know. So they go on, and he is, again, just infatuated with this girl, and he ends up making a comparison of her to his ex-girlfriend. My last girlfriend had a body that could rival a supermodel's, but she was never comfortable with herself. It became one of those things that irritated me about her because no matter how beautiful she was, her insecurity was the loudest thing about her. And 13,000 people highlighted that last part of the sentence. No matter how beautiful she was, her insecurity was the loudest thing about her. Now, good sentiment? Sure. Interesting concept that a lot of people could relate to? Sure. Just is a weird one to have highlighted in my opinion, but we'll come back to that later. They go on talking about his band, you know, how he joined it and how miserable he is and all these other things. And you know, he talks about how he writes music. And she's like, well, why aren't you singing? And he's like, I don't know, it's Garrett's band. She's like, I think he's jealous of you. You should share your lyrics with me. And so he does. This is another one of those like secondhand cringe things that I can't take. I think it was in Punk 57. The main male character in that one was also in a band and shared his lyrics in the book. And I don't think there has ever been a time where I have read lyrics shared in a book that didn't make me, again, want to claw my eyes out. Every single time, without fail, it just comes across so cringy. And I don't know why. Maybe I'm just a hater. You know, I've said this before in my reviews. I'm a hating ass bitch, and I'm okay with that. But it really makes me cringe. And so I'm gonna read it to you. Okay? You guys can, hey, this isn't me, okay? Don't get the ick. It's not me. Don't get the ick at me, okay? But I need to read it to you. He wrote, This is actually really fucked up. So he gets on this piano to play it for her, you know, play the little thing and sing it to her. And this is a song that he wrote when his dad died. So it's not funny. This is really serious, okay? That night, I stopped believing in heaven. I can't believe in a God that cruel, can you? That night, I stopped praying on my knees. But I don't pray standing either. Do you? That night, I closed the door and closed the window. I've been sitting in the dark. Are you? Pretty sure light still comes through the window, but that's fine. You should have set like curtains drawn, but that's fine. It's fine. It's fine. That night, I learned happiness is a fairy tale. 1,000 pages read aloud by you. That night, I stopped believing in God. You were ours. He didn't care. He took you. That is an awfully blasphemous sentence for how like Christian-centric CoHo's writing is. But again, hey, no judgment. You were ours. He didn't care. He took you. So that night, I stopped. I just stopped. That night, I stopped. I just stopped. That night, I stopped. When I'm finished playing the song, I fold my hands in my lap. I'm a little hesitant to turn around and look at her. The whole room got quiet after I played that last note. So quiet, it feels like all the sound was sucked out of the house. I can't even hear her breathing. I like how it ends, she says. She sits up on the couch and tucks her legs beneath. You just stop in the middle of a sentence. It's so perfect. It's so powerful. I wasn't sure if she'd realize the intentional ending, but the fact that she does makes me all the more enamored by her. How do you not notice that it stops in the middle of a sentence? So her response is, where can I find it? Is it on Spotify? And yet again, I say, we're calling brand names out specifically. I hope to God CoHo got a check for that. Not that I want her to have more money, but like, if you're gonna be shouting out names directly, capitalized Spotify instead of like, I don't know, music sharing platform or some stupid thing, you better be getting a check out of it. They go on, they're like about to go upstairs and hook up, I think. And so she says, sorry, I can't, dude. The beginning of this book is crazy. It'll go faster, I promise. This review will not drag on forever. It goes, Aspen, her sister, warned me earlier tonight when she saw me staring at you. She said, promise me you'll stay away from the musicians. They probably all have chlamydia. I laughed. Do you promise her that you'd stay away from me? No. I said, it's fine if he has chlamydia. He probably has condoms too. I don't have chlamydia, but I also don't have a condom. She separates herself from me and stands up. It's okay. I have one in my room. She turns and walks toward the door. This might honestly be one of the only times that I think condoms are actually talked about and used in a Colleen Hoover book. For as surprise pregnancy, that's another bingo card option, as surprise pregnancy as this woman loves to put in here, I'm actually kind of amazed by that, but I feel like it gets canceled out with the whole chlamydia talk. Anyway, so they get to hooking up. They wake up the next morning. She says, I'd kill for a taco right now. I've never wanted inside of a girl's mind more than I want inside Layla's. Her mind doesn't work like how other minds work. There's no filter between her brain and her mouth, and there's no conscience telling her that she should feel bad for whatever she just might have said. She just says things unapologetically and without any remorse, even when her words sting. And I was like, it was a taco. I didn't know brutal honesty was sexy until tonight. I told her a few minutes ago that she was the best sex that I ever had. I expected her to return the compliment, but she just smiled and said, we always think that when we're in it, but then someone new comes along and we forget how good we thought it was before, and the cycle starts all over again. I laughed. I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. Humbling. And so the chapter ends. Ew. Oh, ew. My note. What does my note say? I literally have tears in my eyes over how hard I'm cringing right now. They're like, they have this really, again, given CoHo's like inherent, not evangelical, but like Christian themes, undertones in her book. This is a very surprising conversation, but they talk about the afterlife. I'll just read it to you, okay? I'm not religious, are you? I believe in life after death, but I'm not sure I'm religious. I think existence is simply luck of the draw. We're here for a while and then we're not. That's depressing. Not really. Imagine what heaven is like. The incessant positivity, the smiles, the lack of sin, the thought of living eternally in a place full of people who spent their lives spouting off inspirational quotes sounds way more depressing to me than if it all just ends with death. I don't know if I believe in that kind of afterlife. I look at existence as more of a series of realms. Maybe heaven is one of them. Maybe it isn't. What kind of realms? Think of it like this. The womb is one existence. As a fetus, we don't remember. Also, the use of the word fetus is interesting, again, for the type of author and maybe the type of person that I've painted her out to be in my head. I won't lie. You shouldn't assign like morals or opinions or whatever to authors based on their writing, but I wouldn't expect the word fetus to be said by her. You know what I mean? Anyway, the womb is one existence. As a fetus, we don't remember life before the womb, and we had no idea if there would be life after the womb. All we knew was the womb. But then we were born, and we left the womb and came into our current realm of existence. And now we can't remember being in the womb. How many fucking times is womb said? Before this life. And we have no idea what comes after this life, and when our current life ends, we'll be in a different realm altogether, where we might not remember this realm of existence, just like we don't recall being in the womb. It's just different realms. It's just different realms, one after the other after the other. Some we know for a fact exist, some we only believe exist. There could be realms of existence that we've never even entertained the idea of. I don't think we ever really die. He goes on to say, if you're right, then I like this realm the best. Only because you're in it. No, I like it because I'm in you. What? Again? That could have been a genuine conversation. That could have been like a genuine, religious, interesting commentary conversation to have in your book, and you're just gonna overshadow it with some cringy dialogue from some horny guy at the end of it. Why am I so tortured? I hate it here. That was such a long intro for chapter 1. It'll go faster, I promise. Back to current day for like the next piece of the interview. Leeds has been talking for like a half an hour straight. He's kind of overwhelmed with what he said. You know, he still hears Layla screaming upstairs. So he's like, give me a second. Goes up there. She's like freaking out and flailing and pulling against the ropes and like really hurting herself. And so he's like, hey, like, please stop. Please calm down. You know, I'll go make you a sandwich and we'll talk for a little bit. She's just begging to like untie her. And it is actually horrific, you know, tear-rimmed eyes. You're a liar. All you do is lie to me. Just let me out of here. Good God, right? So he takes care of this, gets her some water, gives her some food, cuffs her like back to the bed. And then he comes back downstairs. The interview guy gives him a glass of bourbon and he says, Leeds says, what's your name? I ask him. I only know the email address that we've been using to communicate, but it was just the name of his business, not his actual name. He looks down at the shirt that he's wearing. It's a Jiffy Lube shirt covered in oil stains with a name tag on it that says Randall. He points at the name tag. Randall. He resumes the recording, but we both know his name isn't Randall, and I know for a fact that it isn't his shirt. But despite knowing he's not entirely forthcoming about his own identity, I still move forward with this interview because he's the only person I know on this earth who can possibly help. Help with what do you mean? He reveals that he and Layla have been together for 8 months now, and the Jiffy Lube guy, Randall, he says, have there been any significant changes in your life since you've met her, besides the obvious? I laugh half-heartedly at that. I'm not even sure what you're referring to when you say besides the obvious. So much has changed. The obvious being everything that has happened in this house. He says, what changed before that? I take another sip of bourbon. Then I finish it off. That's in italics. That's italicized, by the way. He's a hard, edgy badass for finishing his little glass of bourbon. I'm staring into the bottom of the empty glass, thinking about all of it. The picture I posted of us, the outcome of that, the fear, the recovery, everything was perfect for those first 2 months. And then that question elicits a huge sigh from me. And then Sable happened. Who is Sable? My ex. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. So we go into chapter 3, and I would just like to note, I'm going to hammer this throughout this entire review. They were together for 2 months. 2 months. They were together for, 3 days in this little hotel thing, maybe 5 days total, I think, in this hotel when he extended the stay. They come out of it and she's like, oh my God, I'm just going to move in with you. After 5 days. You can go ahead and check that off the bingo card. She moves in with him in Nashville. She's from Chicago. And so she moves down to Nashville. It's just outside of Nashville. It's a place called Franklin. It doesn't really matter for like this point of the story. Whatever. She moves to Nashville with him. After like not very long of knowing him. They're together for 2 months. And then this shenanigans that I'm about to get into happens. And it just like, the insta love is atrocious. I didn't say it earlier, but even like by Colleen Hoover standards, them making out and like falling for each other in the first like 10 pages of the book is like record breaking. Honestly, impressed. In a bad way. Derogatory impressed, but impressed nonetheless. Yeah, so in chapter 3, it's been 2 months of them being together and her living with him in Franklin, Nashville, Tennessee, whatever. And he's deciding that he's not going to leave the band. That was one of the discussions that they had when they were at Corazon de País. was that he was going to quit the band because he hated his life and he was going to pursue his own like solo career, but he decided not to. He's going to stay with it. And so 2 months later, he's preparing to go like on tour, I guess, with the band. And so she's like, did you pack your phone charger? Did you pack your underwear? Did you pack your toothbrush? As if he's not a grown-ass man, i.e. I think like mid-20s is what we're working with here. And, you know, she's helping him build a social media presence and he's gaining followers and he's about to go to Miami to play in a music festival. By social media, he has currently 5,000 subscribers. Since he met LAYLA 2 months ago, he has gained 1,000 subscribers or followers or whatever you want to call it. It's on Instagram, so I guess followers. He's gained 1,000, right? And she's like taking charge of his social media to like, you know, promote his like solo music career, whatever. But the night before they're packing, right? Today, like we wake up today, they're packing, they're getting ready for him to go on this like Miami festival thing. The night before, he was like so enraptured. That's not the word I want to use. He was so like in the moment. He took a selfie with her like sleeping on his chest and posted it on Instagram without a caption. He wakes up that morning, or he gets like, I don't know, some type of lull in their conversation and packing, and he checks Instagram and he sees that there are so many negative comments calling her, you know, a floozy. That's a very nice old school word to say what they're calling her, you know, saying that like he was hotter when he was single, like all kinds of nonsense. And so he ends up deleting the photo because he's like, oops, I didn't think people would actually care that much. This is really awkward. I don't want her to see this type of thing. Later on in the day, she's like, hey, I saw that you posted us. I guess we're Instagram official. And he feels incredibly awkward about it, but tries to, I don't know, play it off. And he gets concerned. Like he's thinking about this and he's like, wow, like these people are so incredibly emotional, right, about me having a girlfriend. Like I'm actually kind of uncomfortable about leaving her alone right now. And 5,000 subscribers and feeling that way about something is just weird. I say that as I'm posting this with 5,000 subscribers on YouTube right now, but like, you know what I mean? Just like, I don't know. It just was weird. It's hard to believe that it would be that much of a like concern and people freaking out like that when you have 5,000 subscribers. CoHo, you wrote the book. Why didn't you make it like 50? That still would have been believable. Even 15, 20, all 5 is just weird to me. It turns out his concern is justified because he's getting ready to pack. He's about to get in the shower and somebody rings the doorbell. LAYLA says, oh, I'll go and get it. Goes down there. He's like, no, LAYLA, I'll get it. Because he's all worried about stuff happening. By the time he gets down there, he hears 2 gunshots ring out. He finds LAYLA on the floor with blood pooling around her. He gets shot in the, I think, shoulder. And he says to the interview guy, everything after that is a blur, a nightmare. What do you mean? This is escalating so quickly. We go back to current day in the interview. And Leeds confirms that it was Sable, his ex-girlfriend, who shot LAYLA. But he doesn't want to give any more details than that. And instead, he goes back up to check on LAYLA again. He just goes back up there and talks to her for a little while and ends up retying her. And then he goes back downstairs to continue the interview. You know, he's like, yeah, you know, I got shot as well. I called 911. They ended up coming. And then LAYLA had to have surgery because she got shot in the fucking head, by the way, like in the head, like right here. She like messes with the scar all the time. I'm assuming it's here. And then he had surgery as well, but it was like super low key. And he was worried that she wasn't going to pull through, but she did. And it was this whole thing. But it was still a TBI, like a traumatic brain injury. And so she ends up being in the hospital. It's like touch and go for a week after her surgery where they're like, okay, we don't know if she's going to pull through or not. Another month after that, she spends in the hospital recovering from a traumatic brain injury because she got shot in the fucking head. I feel like that is not talked about enough in this book. Like that is not emphasized enough. So it's another month of recovering, making sure that she's okay. She gets discharged. She goes home. Her mother and her sister come and like live with them on and off for a couple of weeks to like help out and take care of her and all this stuff. Finally, after a couple more months of, you know, whatever, she gets cleared to leave Tennessee. And so he ends up renting out Corazon de País, so that they can go and stay at this hotel. He's like, it's been a couple months. She's kind of changed and it's been very stressful. And so if we go back to where we fell in love, we can rekindle everything between us. Okay, honestly, not like the worst idea in the world after something traumatic happens to go back and be where you fell in love at. But again, I'm back to the fact of like, they would have been together longer post incident in recovery than they were pre-incident in recovery. And it's just like, this is just such a weird situation. Again, I go back to the fact of like, why did this have to be insta love? You could have lied to me. We could have made this years-long relationship with a stalker ex. We could have made this a years-long recovery. You know what I'm saying? Like, none of this had to have happened as quickly as it did. But CoHo makes this like conscious decision to say, 1 month, 2 months, blah, blah, blah. That I'm like, why? Is it the appeal of insta love, this like insta attraction and like knowing they're the one? Or like, why are people so addicted to this idea of insta love? I don't get it. We don't want to build relationships or like give any indication of like an actual relationship. Honest to God, I would love for you to comment if you have any ideas. What is the obsession with insta love? Again, you can lie to me. I'm stupid. It's your story. Just tell me 6 months. Tell me a year and I'll believe it. Just like telling me 2 months. Why? Why would you do that to me? At least try to make it not bad. So when he goes upstairs and gives her the sandwich, she like scarfs it down. And he says, you used to hate my sandwiches. She shrugs. People change, she says between bites. You also used to be a loving boyfriend who didn't hold me hostage, but look at you now. Touché, he thinks. When her shoulders feel more relaxed, I leave her on the bed as I walk to the bathroom, trusting that Willow will stop Layla if she ever tries to escape again. My note says, hello? Is Willow your guard dog? What the freaking heck does that mean? Willow will stop Layla if she runs away again. We'll find out shortly, but what? And as he's telling the guy in the interview of like, yeah, I decided to take her back. She used to love it. The interview guy says, when did she stop loving? And Leeds says, I guess the day that I brought her back. And again, dun, dun, dun. I feel like CoHo like set up all of these just to be like, it's like, you know what I mean? She was setting herself up for every single one of these of like, cliffhangers at the end of these chapters and like you want to keep reading, which isn't a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that it is like, I don't know. Is it try hard? No, but it's not good writing because it feels so intentionally set up for something that like, I don't know. Is that how flashbacks are? No, am I being a hating ass bitch? Again, probably. So I'm like, I don't know my opinion of it, but I just know that it reads cheesy to me. Reading her setups of like the interview into the next chapter of explaining what the interview is doesn't feel like a cohesive, flowy thought. It feels like again, like a layup for her to do this next piece, which isn't good writing. It's not subtle writing. It's more of like the most direct point A to point B that you could possibly have, but I don't know if that is a genuine critique that I can have or not, or if that's just like a writing style difference. And again, I'm just like, just a different preference of writing that I read. Does that make sense? Maybe. I don't know. Chapter 4 opens in the most normal way possible. I ate a strand of Layla's hair this morning. The thought crossed my mind that something as weird as eating your girlfriend's hair could be the starting point of even weirder behavior. It could be a precursor to cannibalism. Oh, Jesus Christ. Much like harming animals as a child is sometimes a precursor to becoming a serial killer. Okay, and you still did it? But eating her hair was nothing more than a slightly creepy last-ditch effort on my part to try to absolve myself from all the guilt. I dreamt that swallowing a piece of her hair tethered us together somehow, eliminating any fear that we might someday grow apart because of everything that happened. So when I woke up, I plucked a strand from her head while she slept and I put it in my mouth. That was 8 hours ago, and it feels like the strand somehow found its way to my heart and cut off the blood supply. My heart is choking. That would be a good lyric. So anyway, he's getting her to pack her bag to get on an airplane to go to the house, right? To go to Corazon de País. He is keeping it as a surprise. He's not telling her where they're going. And so they get on the plane and he says, any guesses where we're flying? I know we're flying to Nebraska. I don't even know it's in Nebraska. We're not actually staying in Nebraska. It's just the closest airport to where we're going, though. That should be a hint, but she doesn't seem to catch on to it. She grabs some of the small water bottles from between the seats and opens it. I hope it's relaxing. I don't know that I'm in the mood for adventure. So right before takeoff, she takes a photo of him to post on his Instagram, about him like traveling and like, working on the road or whatever. So she takes this mysterious picture of him. She tells him not to smile, posts it, puts a bunch of hashtags on it. Hashtag hashtag singer, hashtag musician, hashtag leads Gabriel. That's his last name. Hashtag model. Okay. We will come back to this later. They take this photo, the plane's about to take off, and she starts to have a panic attack, like full blown freaking the heck out once they get into the air. So he takes her to the restroom on the plane. You know, he tells the stewardess, he's like, hey, she's freaking out. Stewardess looks at her, she's like, yeah, it's cool, go in there. They go into the bathroom together. He gives her a hug and he says, hey, I don't want to ruin your surprise, but like it might be freaking you out that you don't know where we're going. So we're going to Corazon de País. Sorry, I can't help but say it like that. I booked it for 2 whole weeks. She says, where? I try to hide my concern, but this has been happening a lot. Things that she should easily remember to take a moment to come back to her. The doctor said that it's normal after brain damage, but it's still jarring every time that I realize just how much she lost. The bed and breakfast, I say. The familiarity eases back into her expression. Oh yeah, Aspen's wedding, Garrett's band. There's a flicker of excitement in her eyes. So the memory issues have started to happen since the brain injury, as well as the panic attacks. And then it gets talked about throughout this, but just kind of a general overlay. She has definitely developed some like disordered eating habits where she just like won't eat at all. So just things to note that since the brain damage, since the accident has happened, that these are some traits that she has taken on. The second that she feels better from the panic attack, they're in the bathroom and she says, hey, let's join the Mile High Club. Okay, I'm not explaining it to you if you don't know what it is. It's not safe for work though. And he immediately shuts her down. And he's like, I feel so guilty, but I can't believe that she would ask to do such a thing after all of this and blah, 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 blah. He says, I can't be the Band-Aid for her wounds. I need to be what helps them heal. 7,500 people highlighted that quote. But don't worry though. When they get off the plane, it's like a 20-minute drive to the bed and breakfast that they're going to. They make a pit stop on the way. She goes into the restroom and he notices though that like when he's getting her out of the car that she's been picking at her like wound so much that it's bleeding. So he goes into the bathroom of this gas station with her to help her clean it up. And in the middle of cleaning it up, he's like, no wonder she's acting so different. I'm treating her so different. You know, I'm babying her and I'm not treating her how I would before. Like I'm just, you know, I'm treating her like she's fragile and she's not. And so then they bang. She's still bleeding. I don't think we ever addressed that. Time and place, my guy. I'm glad that you're not, you know, putting on the freaking little baby gloves and putting her in a bubble and like treating her normal or whatever, like you should be, but time and place? Why are we banging in a gas station bathroom? They get back into the car after the fact though, and they drive to the bed and breakfast. They have it booked for 2 weeks, right? So it's going to be full of relaxation. The one thing to note is that the bed and breakfast, it has since closed down. So it's super empty. It's literally just them. Like he rented out the whole entire place for them. They get in there and Leeds sees the grand piano, like where he played the first song for Layla, like the first night that they met and they fell in love. And he reveals that a lot of this trip is also for him to focus on writing music. That's literally not relevant any other time in the story, I don't think. But like, okay. So he's there to write music, you know, as well to like rekindle their love and their passion and the fire in their relationship. But Layla, when the second she walks into the door, she gets like goosebumps and she's like really, really cold. And she's just like, hey, I have a headache. Like I need to go and take a nap. And he's like, oh yeah, okay, that's fine. Like our bedrooms, you know, same bedroom as last time, you know, just up on the top floor. And so he goes to try and fix the thermostat while she just walks around. He sees her walking through the hallway, very clearly not knowing the layout of this bed and breakfast. Like she doesn't know what door the bathroom is at. So he ends up telling her. She steps into the bathroom finally. He finds the thermostat. It's set at, I think, 78 degrees or something crazy like that. So he's like, I don't know why she's cold, but I guess I'll bump it up to try and chase out whatever chill that she's feeling. And in that same moment, he hears a scream from the bathroom. He goes in there. Layla is standing in front of a broken mirror in the bathroom that clearly has like a punch mark in it, like a dent in it, like somebody punched the mirror. He's like, oh my God, what happened? She says, I don't know. It was already broken when I got in here. Oh. Okay. But she has blood on her knuckles. But Leeds is like, okay, that's fine. Let's just shepherd you right upstairs. You know, he like tends to the cuts and he is really, really starting to freak out that her like memory loss and her anxiety is getting worse and worse and like worse than he imagined it ever being. And so when we go into chapter 6, it's the first evening and, you know, he's making soup for them while she takes a nap. He's trying to remember what life was like after Layla's hospital stay. And that's where he talks about the mother and the sister staying with them and stuff. And he talks about how he bought the engagement ring for her while she was in the hospital because it made him realize life is so fragile and you never know what you'll ever have until it's gone or some stupid shit like that. Again, 2 months into the relationship, he buys an engagement ring. And so he brought it with him on this trip. He like tucked it into one of his running shoes, and then he unpacked and put it in the closet to make sure that she wouldn't find it. He was planning on proposing to her, never felt like the right time. And so now that they're back at Corazon de País, he's hoping that, you know, it'll be rekindled and the spark will come back and he'll propose to her on this trip, right? He checks in on Layla while she's taking the nap. And when he goes up there, he opens the door, he sees her. All of a sudden, there's a crash in the kitchen where he was making their soup. He goes down there, the stove turned off, the soup is flung all over the place. There's a burnt rag, and he is like, okay, I didn't know what's happening. Very clearly, something crazy is going on, but he plays it off and he doesn't want to tell Layla what's going on. So he just, when she wakes up from the noise and she comes downstairs, he says it was his fault. He's like, yeah, oopsies, clumsy me. I made it, accident here. Don't mind it. But he is internally very shocked that this happened and he doesn't really know what's going on. So we go back to the interview, back to current day, and Leeds pauses his story when the interviewer asks to see the stove that had turned itself off. And the interviewer says, yeah, this would have required like pushing it and turning it. So this is very clearly not just something that would happen. And the guy asks, did anything else happen that night? And Leeds tells him no, but there were several other things over the next few days. Dun, dun, dun. Like I said, God forbid, it's so heavy-handed. So he goes back to telling his story. In chapter 7, Leeds is making pasta for dinner. This is like another day. And Layla is just picking at her food. And he is, again, like I mentioned earlier, he's reflecting on how she has really developed these like disordered eating habits since her accident. You know, she weighs herself frequently, she picks around carbs, like she is just not doing good. And so he tries to change the topic and he's like, hey, you know, your sister and her new husband, they're going to come and visit us in like at the end of the visit in 2 weeks or whatever. They're going to come by. Aren't you so excited? And all of a sudden, Layla just starts like scarfing down her food. Leeds doesn't really know how to react to this, but he's just happy. He's just like, oh my God, okay. Kind of weird, but also I'm really happy that you're eating. And then just as fast as that happened, she snaps out of it and starts freaking the fuck out. She's like, where did my food go? Oh my God, what happened? I didn't eat that. Where did it? What happened? What happened? What happened? What happened? Begins frantically searching for her anxiety medication because she feels like she's losing her mind. And eventually she goes to bed like after she calms down. Leeds follows her to bed. You know, they try to act like it's a normal night, whatever, but he wakes up in the middle of the night to find that Layla's not in bed with him. She's in the bathroom, staring at herself in the mirror. And he says, hey babe, you good? What's going on there? She says, don't worry about it. They go and lay back down, but he can't sleep. So he stays up for a little bit longer, just staring at the ceiling, contemplating life, and then goes and calls his mom. And he's like, hey, there's some weird stuff happening. Like, do you believe in ghosts? Like, give me some motherly advice. What's happening? And her response is, hey, I think you're just really stressed out, maybe feeling really guilty from the stuff that happened with Sable. Like, there's just a lot going on in your life. I'm sure it's just manifesting in weird ways, like the stress and the whatever that you guys are feeling. Like, don't worry about it, you know? He hangs up and he's like, okay, I guess that's fine. Like, that's cool, but that also doesn't help me at all. Like, I still feel weird. Like, there's still weird stuff happening. And so he opens up his computer because he's like, okay, I'll just write some music. Like, let me just at least channel this energy and me like being up in the middle of the night. Like, let me do something good with it. He writes a few lines and then he thinks like, oh, maybe I should buy the bed and breakfast, right? It's for sale. Like I said, it got abandoned in the last couple of months since they've left it. So he's preparing to write an email to the realtor who like he contacted to rent the Airbnb from. And all of a sudden, tippy-tappy typing away, the laptop lid slams on his hands. Okay. So he runs to the bedroom, locks the door, and just hopes that he's just being delirious from like a lack of sleep or whatever, and that he's just gonna buy security cameras the next day. He's like, I don't know what's going on, but it sure as hell ain't gonna keep happening, you know? So the next morning, Leeds wakes up and he's like, okay, maybe it was just a bad dream. Like all this stuff that happened with my laptop, maybe it was a bad dream. Everything's gonna be fine. He opens it up. He goes to the Word document where he had written some lyrics. He had only written a couple lines, but when he looks at the document, it's 2 pages long. He scrolls to the bottom of it, and on the second page, There are the words, "I'm sorry I scared you." Hello? He doesn't really understand what's happening. He's like, Layla must have done that, but also I don't know why Layla would, and she wouldn't really play a prank on me like that. Like, that's just really, really weird. He doesn't want to upset her. So he's like, okay, we'll just act like this didn't happen. And so instead he asks if she wants to come to town to go and buy security cameras with him. She says no. And so that, I guess, super weird. We cut back to current day, and the interviewer guy is like, hey, so why didn't you leave the house at this point? Like, you start seeing some ghosty stuff, you know, your pants are flying off the freaking table, like, why just stay? Leeds' response is, I don't know, it seemed fascinating. I had nothing else going on in my life, and I thought this was intriguing. I had to solve the mystery. So you know how, like, in chapter 1, when he said that he didn't love anybody or whatever, the most important person in his life was Layla? I feel like this is indicative of that. We have a man who has no hobbies, no desires, no goals outside of just being rich and vibing, that he decides to get himself involved in ghosty, haunting experiences. Okay? So chapter 9, he's gotten the security cameras, he's installing them in the kitchen and the grand room, and I don't know, he's just like, he's feeling weird. He feels the vibes in the house and the supernatural activity that's going on. And one of the nights he falls asleep on the couch in the grand room, which is just the rich bitch ass way of saying living room, I'm assuming. He wakes up, realizes there's a blanket on him, and he says, oh, that's kind of weird. I feel like I'm invading my girlfriend's privacy, but I really need to see if she covered me up with the blanket. And if she did, then like, why would my hands be shaking like this? Like, why would I be freaking out so bad? He pulls up the security camera and he sees a shadow in the doorway. Hold on, I'll read this to you. At 3:20 in the morning, a shadow appears in the doorway to the grand room. Layla isn't anywhere in the frame, but I can tell it's her shadow. A few seconds later, she walks slowly into the grand room. She stares down at me as I'm sleeping, and then she covers me with a blanket. It was Layla. I'm an idiot. I'm getting inside of my own head, and now I'm forcing myself to assume things are happening without some explanation behind them. I move my finger to stop the video, but my finger hovers over the screen because something Layla does on the video catches my attention. After she covered me up, her eyes moved straight to the security camera. I watched the video with a lump in my throat. Layla peers at the camera for a good 15 seconds before moving toward it. She walks across the room with a curious expression on her face. It stops right in front of the camera. She doesn't pick it up. She doesn't even touch it. She just stares into it as if she wants me to see her. A moment later, she turns and walks out of the room, leaving me asleep on the couch. The whole interaction between Layla and the camera is so bizarre. Keep in mind, Layla does not know where he put these cameras. Like, she wasn't there when he bought them, and so she has no idea how many he bought or where he put them or anything because she was resting, right? So this is like super weird that she clocked it immediately and then had this like weird interaction with the cameras, right? So the whole interaction between Layla and the camera is so bizarre. I rewind it and watch it again, but this time I keep watching the video long after Layla has left the room. There are a couple of times I roll over on the couch, but other than those two movements, nothing else happens in the room until it does. At approximately 4:29 in the morning, the camera view changes abruptly and then the video goes black. I pause the video and look at the security camera perched on one of the bookshelves. It's pointed toward the wall now. I immediately stand up and walk over to the camera. I adjust it so that it's pointing at the grand room again. There's no way that this camera could have turned on its own. And so he starts to freak the fuck out. Same. That drives him to create an account on a paranormal chat room using a fake name so that he can try to, I don't know, ask other paranormal folks what they think is happening. And so he writes, I don't believe in ghosts, not even a little, but things have happened that even my skeptic self can't explain. Appliances turn off by themselves. Objects move themselves. My laptop slammed shut on my hands. My initial thought is that my girlfriend is pranking me, but the timelines and her placement in the house don't add up with the things that have happened. I'm not sure what I'm expecting you guys to say. I guess I just want another skeptic to explain these things away from me. But how many things have to happen before they can no longer be explained? Immediately after he posts that, Layla just appears in the doorway. She's like, hey, what are you doing today? Okay. They kind of like move on and stuff. And he's like, why hasn't she asked me about the camera? Maybe she assumes that it belongs to the owner of the house. I'll just let her keep assuming that. They go on about their day, a lot more banter at the pool. He's just constantly checking this like paranormal forum and people are asking him a bunch of questions. Whatever. She calls him on being on his phone a bunch and then they end up banging on a pool floaty. I don't know what you want from me. That night, like Layla goes to sleep and so he's downstairs working on some music and again, still responding to this like paranormal forum. And it gets to the point that the piano plays itself, like it presses on a key by itself. And so he ends up starting this discussion with said ghost. He's like, press the A key, press the D key. Okay. Press middle C for yes and press D for no. If you don't know the answer, hit A, right? So he's like, okay, are you a ghost? I don't know. Are you dead? I don't know. Are you dangerous? No. Do you know me? No. Okay. I'm having a conversation with a piano. I mutter, what the f is happening? Okay. Am I holding up 3 fingers? No. He's holding up 5. Okay. So the ghost is like watching him. You know, he's able to validate that it knows that he's holding up 5 fingers and the ghost is alone and he's just really trying to like rack his head over like, or rack his brain of like, what is happening? Can you show yourself to me? No. Because you don't want to? No. Because you don't know how to? Yes. Okay. He says, do you have a name? The ghost says yes. So he gets the idea of like, oh, okay. So this must have been what typed to me on my laptop the other day, right? When it was like the, sorry for scaring you. So he pulls up on his laptop and he's like, what is your name? And the ghost types out Willow. Okay. Ghosts are real, and this one's name is Willow. I stare at the computer for so long that the screen goes dark. Then my laptop shuts, all by itself. This is insane. I leave the room. When I get up to the bedroom, I open the drawer where Layla keeps all her medicine. She has 3 prescriptions, one for her anxiety, one to help her sleep, and one is a pain medication. I take one of each. I need to say... My husband is a pharmacist and he would kill me if I didn't say this as a PSA. Don't take anybody else's medication ever. And don't take it against the, prescribed recommendations from your doctor. Okay? Don't do that. Cut back to current day. We're in another interview portion. He's back up talking to Layla and she's screaming, help me, help me. She knows that someone's downstairs and even though she knows someone is in the house, she has no idea he isn't here to help her escape. He's not here to help you, Layla. I say, he's here to help us get answers. I don't want answers. I want to leave. Can you just imagine how horrifying this is for her? At this point in the story, we are 100 pages in. What is this, like 30-something% of the way through? We don't know why she's tied up yet, right? And this was the same thing in Verity, where it's like, oh yeah, we're painting such and such as the victim and like such and such, and this is why this happened. And, our main characters are the good people, the good ones. We have to trust it. We have to trust that these are the whatever. Can you imagine for 1 second to be Verity? Not Verity. Well, yeah, to be Verity too. To be Layla. You suffered. You met this man for 2 months. You give up your life. You move in with him. Right before she moved in with him, I think she got laid off or she didn't have her job or something. So she moved in with her parents in Chicago. And so that's why she was like, yeah, I'll move in with you, baby. Because she didn't have a job or anything to really keep her in Chicago. So 2 months into a relationship, you move in with your boyfriend. Actually, less than that. Anyway, you move in with your boyfriend across the country. No support system. You get shot in the fucking head. Couple months later, you're tied up in the middle of Kansas in an abandoned bed and breakfast with your boyfriend saying, yeah, the person that's downstairs isn't here to help you. And I'm supposed to like him. And I'm supposed to be rooting for him. And I'm supposed to think that Layla's the bad guy. We'll get there in a second. What do you mean? Okay, it's fine. So anyway, she's freaking the fuck out, as would anybody. And he says, Layla, this is out of my control. You know that. You saw the video. Even if I were to untie you, you'd be unable to leave. If I can't leave, then why do I have to stay tied up? Untie me and let me go downstairs with you. You can tie me to a chair. I don't care. I just don't want to be up here anymore. He says, okay, I'll bring you downstairs in 20 minutes. I'll come back up. 20 minutes, I promise. So he goes back downstairs. Interviewer guy, Randall, Jiffy Lube. He says, does she know why I'm here? Leeds says, no. Jiffy Lube asks, does she know anything at all? Leeds says, a little, but she thinks it's all related to her head injury, the memory loss. She doesn't know it has nothing to do with her. What do you mean? What does she think about you keeping her locked inside the house? She thinks I'm a monster. Why don't you just let her leave? Because maybe she's right. Maybe I am a monster. Okay. Jiffy Lube nods sympathetically, and I don't know how he can look at me without judgment, but that's exactly how he's looking at me right now. Almost like he's seen this before. After the incident with the piano, did you speak to Willow again that night? No. I fell asleep. I slept for 12 hours because of the pills I took. When I woke up, Layla decided that she wanted another pool day despite her sunburn. She stayed under the canopy and read a book in the shade, and I joined her because I wanted to stay out of the house. I was uneasy after what happened the night before, but the whole time we were outside, I was on my phone, distracted by the cameras, waiting for something else to happen, speaking to people in the forum. Did you speak to Willow again that day? Chad and Aspen, the brother-in-law and sister of Layla, ended up showing up around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I didn't even try to communicate with Willow. I tried to forget it happened, but Willow made that impossible. How so? She joined us for dinner. Again. Dun, dun, dun. Chapter 10. It is Aspen and Chad's first anniversary, so they come over to hang out and celebrate. Because, right, that's where they got married. It makes sense that they would come and celebrate their first anniversary also at Corazon de Pies. So they show up. Sorry. I need to stop doing that. I'm sure it's annoying, but it's so funny to me. Oh, so they show up here. They're whatever. Homeboy, Chad Kyle, again, in every cliche fashion of Colleen trying to make this guy be a shithead, gets super, super wasted, asks way too inappropriate and intimate of questions of Leeds and Layla. Ultimately, he ends up getting so drunk that he passes out, so Leeds and Aspen have to bring him up to his room. In the middle of dinner though, during that time, they were eating pizza. Layla wasn't eating anything. All of a sudden she stiffens, and then she scarfs down 3 pieces of pizza, and then she stiffens, and then she starts looking at her plate like she can't believe that it's empty and she doesn't know what happened. Okay, so they take Chad upstairs to sleep it out, and then he ends up convincing Layla to go to bed. He's like, hey baby, calm down, you need to go to sleep. Ends up getting on his laptop, and he says, was that you, ? Willow says yes, and Leeds realizes that Willow can inhabit Layla's body, and that maybe she's done it a couple of times before at least. And she's like, yeah, I'm the one that, I made your laptop slam on your hands because I didn't want you to buy this house. And yeah, I inhabit her body to make her eat food because she's starving herself, Leeds. She's, she has an eating disorder, and I'm trying to help her, and I make her eat food because every time I inhabit her body, I'm just so hungry, and I can't believe that she would do that to herself. I don't like that personally. I'm not a real big fan of how we're talking about her. And it ends up, Willow is like, are you mad at me? Are you mad at me for inhabiting Layla's body? And Leeds' first thought is, I never thought of that. Hello? This motherfucker. He says, I want you to do it again. I want to be able to have a real conversation with you. He closes his laptop, and Layla comes down the stairs, possessed by the ghost Willow. Okay, comes down there, and they start having a little chit chat. Layla, my voice is a whisper, but not because I'm trying to be quiet. I just don't have much of a voice right now because there's more trepidation caught in my throat than air. She shakes her head. Willow? She nods. I lean forward over the table and blow out a deep breath, massaging my forehead with my hands. What the You aren't going to run? She asks. Her voice is Layla's voice, but it comes out different. Her voice sounds full of amusement, unlike Layla's voice. Should I? No. This is so strange. How can I be looking at Layla while seeing someone else entirely stare back at me? I've officially lost my mind. Am I going crazy? She shrugged. You've asked that before. I don't know the answer. Can I have some juice? Juice? She wants some juice? I can get it. Okay, so I guess she gets some juice. Sorry. This is where they talk about the whole disordered eating thing. She goes on to talk about how when she's floating as a spirit in the house, she doesn't really feel anything, but whenever she inhabits Layla's body, she gets Layla's memories. So whenever she inhabits it, she's like, yeah, I know she loves you, and she loves this place, and it's just so beautiful. Okay, and so then he's like, but how did you feel when I first showed up here? Nervous. I didn't want you here. That's why I closed your laptop when you were emailing the realtor about buying the house. So that was you. I don't normally do things like that. I try to keep our worlds separate. You aren't right now. That's because you asked me to do this, to talk to you through Layla. I don't want to do this. But you have. Twice already. Maybe 3 times, right? Yes, but that's only because it's torture sometimes. I can't help it. He says, is this some kind of joke, Layla? She says, no, I'm Willow. He's like, how old are you? She's like, I don't know. I don't have any memories from when I was human, but like, I'm here. Time doesn't matter. What? Time's an illusion. And so he's like, okay, but like, can you remember things from Layla's past? Like, do you know anything of what's going on? And she's like, I don't want to intrude. I try not to sift through Layla's mind like that. And then Aspen ends up appearing in the doorway. They all sit down together, watch some movies, and kind of hang out. And Willow ends up saying, hey, I'm going to stay in Layla's body until she falls asleep, because if I leave her body and she wakes up in this moment and doesn't remember getting here, she's going to freak the frick out. So I try to only like inhabit and leave when she's asleep so she doesn't know any better. He says, okay. So they go through the night hanging out with Aspen, the sister, and then they fall asleep cradling each other. Yeah, okay. And Leeds is sitting there thinking the whole time like, oh my God, she must be so lonely. And he's like feeling bad for her. Okay, we go back to the interview that he's having with Jiffy Lube. Layla is still screaming upstairs, and Leeds asks if he can bring her down to meet him. Layla initially like doesn't know who he is. She doesn't know why he's there. Jiffy Lube says, yeah, hey, you know, my name's Richard. Randall. Leeds corrects, pointing at his name tag. He's like, oh yeah. Randall. Sorry, Randall. What the hell? She's like, are you a doctor? He says something back to her, and Layla says, you know what? Actually, I don't care. I'm done. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this at all. You guys are all crazy, and I feel crazy, and I'm leaving. I'm leaving right now. Gets possessed. It's Willow. Willow says, I can't. You need to tie her up again. She's just gonna leave. You need to tie her up again. What the fuck do you mean? What is happening? So Willow, inhabiting Layla's body, he's like, hey, let's go upstairs. I'm gonna tie you up. Go to sleep, and then let Layla re-inhabit the body or something. Yeah. Okay, because that's healthy. That's totally healthy and normal. That's fine. So he does this. He comes back downstairs. Jiffy Lube, Randall, Robert, Richard, whatever the hell his name is. He says, hey, so like, Willow's a ghost, obviously, and you're here. Why don't you guys just let Layla go? Like, why are you holding Layla hostage? I don't answer that, because the answer makes me feel like a monster. The man leans forward, tilting his head. Are you in love with her? Of course. She's only tied up because I want to keep an eye on her, but I can't do this if she leaves. I wasn't talking about Layla. My eyes fall to the table when I realize what he's insinuating. I can feel the heat in my chest spread to my neck, my cheeks. No, it's not like that. Not like what? It's not, I don't know, I care about Willow, but I'm in love with Layla. But you've developed a relationship with Willow. Enough of one that you would put Layla at risk in order to help Willow. I don't feel like Layla is at risk. You certainly aren't keeping her out of harm's way by forcing her to stay here, but I'm also not doing it out of lack of concern for her. I'm getting agitated at his line of questioning. Look, it doesn't matter why I'm choosing to keep Layla here. She's seen too much. That's a good enough reason alone. I wave my hand toward him. Ask me something else. He rolls his eyes a little. All right. How often do you and Willow use Layla's body without her knowledge? Not as much as we did at first. How often did it happen in the beginning? A lot. What the f*** do you mean a lot? Chapter 11? Chapter 11 is more of a reflection about Leeds and his budding relationship with Willow. He wakes up the next day, gets on his laptop, little tippy-tappy-typey, of like, he asks her questions and then she types out answers. You know, he learns that she's familiar with like technology. You know, she knows how to cook, and she doesn't know how she learned all of those things, but, you know, she must have been alive before the bed and breakfast. Like, she had a life before being at this place, right? So Layla eventually wakes up and comes downstairs. It's 11 a.m., and he makes a comment, and he says, hey, 11 a.m.'s the deadliest time of the day. She's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Turns out, very early on in their relationship, I didn't say this earlier, but that was like one of the random cutesy quirky girl things that she said. Whenever she was like, I want tacos that morning, she also was like, did you know that 11 a.m. is the deadliest time of day? And so he's like, you know, doing a little bit of a callback, a little bit of a joke at 11 a.m. She doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. And so he's like, oh, yikes. Her memory loss is a lot worse than I thought it was. This is really, really awkward. So then he's like, okay, how about we go and get tacos? Her response is, I've gained so much weight on this trip already. Like, I really don't want tacos. I really don't like them like that. Okay. everything that's happening is a little contradictory to like what, you know, who the woman was that he fell in love with initially at the bed and breakfast. Which again, I go back to the fact we had a traumatic brain injury that we're only like 4 to 6 months away from, out of, whatever. Maybe have some patience. Maybe not be a dick. Maybe not fall in love with a ghost. Regardless, they go out and get tacos and margaritas, and Leeds decides that he's going to bring extra tacos back for Willow to eat that night when she inhabits Willow's body, or Layla's body again. Cool. All that Leeds can think of is how excited he is to go back that night to hang out with Willow. Dude, this piece of shit. Chapter 12. They go out for margaritas and tacos. Like I said, she has a disordered eating habits. She doesn't really eat. All she does is drink. So she's incredibly drunk when they get home. And he is getting really impatient for Layla to go to bed by the time that they get back. And so he pours her a glass of wine and crushes up one of her sleeping pills into the glass of wine to give to his drunk girlfriend so that she passes out, so that his ghost mistress will inhabit her body. That's a sentence I never thought I would say out loud. So as he's doing this, Willow, the ghost, slams it out of his hands and it falls on the ground. Thank God, at least somebody has a brain. You literally could have killed your freaking girlfriend, dude. And so, you know, she tries to, Layla, right? She's trying to like initiate like sex with Leeds. He turns her down. He doesn't care. He literally, all he wants to do is talk to Willow. He feels a little guilty about it, but obviously not guilty enough given what he just tried to do to this woman. He goes downstairs to clean up the wine glass that got slammed out of his hands. Turns out it's already cleaned up. Looks like Willow's a busy lady. He goes back upstairs. Willow has already inhabited Layla's body, confronts him about trying to drug Layla, scolds him for it, and then they end up like getting in the shower, or they end up getting in the pool together. Willow is afraid, like if he keeps going down this whole like paranormal forum thing, that they're going to find answers and then she will cease to exist. Like she's afraid that if somebody comes in and talks to them, that she'll just disappear forever and she won't end up being able to be with Leeds in the first place. And it's going to be this like whole thing. So she doesn't want the paranormal investigator to come, or the detective, or Ralph, Richard, Jiffy Lube guy, right? The whole point, she's like, I don't want them here. I want to be a ghost and I want to love you and I want to do all this stuff, but like they can't come because I might just disappear forever. Which objectively is kind of a valid concern, but they like continue to spend that night together. You know, they watch the movies and Leeds is like, oh my God, I love her so much. She's reminding me so much of Layla when we first got together. Like, I love this little ghosty lady. She's my favorite person ever, being, entity ever. And ultimately the night ends with her kind of saying like, hey, I want to stay a ghost and haunt the bed and breakfast. And I just want to spend time with you. I don't want anybody to solve the problems. Obviously, homie doesn't listen. So we cut back to real life. Interview number 8. The undercover ink guy, Jiffy Lube, goes to the bathroom and Leeds pulls out his laptop to continue talking to Willow. He's like, hey, have you been here? Have you been listening? She says, no, I've been waiting for Layla to fall asleep. Like, what's going on? He's like, I told him almost everything except about the night that Sable shot Layla. Like, I've told him everything else. And Willow scolds him for withholding that information. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll tell him. When Jiffy Lube comes back into the room, Leeds tells him, like, hey, I was just talking to her on the laptop. He says, cool. And then they go on with the interview in chapter 13. Oh my God, I didn't talk about that. So they ended the night. The movie that they were watching together was the movie Ghost, which I have never watched. The only thing that I know from that is when, like, it's like they're throwing clay, I guess is the term. Like she's on like the little clay thing, like shaping a vase or something, and the little ghost guy comes behind her and he's like, you know, like helping her shape the pottery. You know what I'm talking about? It's like an old school movie. So they watched that movie together. That is so on the freaking nose. It's not even funny. But anyway, they go to sleep watching that movie. He wakes up the next day. Actual Layla, is making breakfast and talking about like, it's supposed to storm today. We need to take some social media pictures for your social media, and also, you know, we're gonna leave on Wednesday, like we're set to leave in a couple of days. And ultimately he's like, hey, I'm making progress on the album, like I'm doing all of this like songwriting, how about we stay for 3 more days? And the deal is, if he spends 3 hours taking social media photos, that she'll stay for 3 more days in the bed and breakfast, which is some crazy math. And I feel like not very good bargaining, but that's fine. That's the agreement that they come to. Later that night, Layla goes to sleep. Willow inhabits her body. She comes downstairs. She makes fun of Leeds for the social media pictures and then asks him to sing her a song, like the first song that he sang Layla when they fell in love. So he does. She's like, yeah, I can really feel it. I can feel that Layla loves you. And then he goes on to sing her a new song called No Vacancy. I showed up rich while feeling poor. I didn't knock, but they opened the door, throwing stones. Oh my Jesus Christ. Throwing stones, they pierce my eye, leave tiny cracks all down my spine. We were royalty without a throne. Our castle didn't feel like home. Echoes of I love you in the halls, our words absorbed into the walls. I checked us in so we couldn't leave. Thought maybe time would make me believe. If I took us back to the starting line, we'd never cross the finish line. My hands may not be red, but my heart, it feels the bleed. If my soul had a neon sign, it would read no vacancy. If my soul had a neon sign, it would read no vacancy, which I feel like is a complete ripoff from I Would Follow You Into the Dark by Death Cab for Cutie, right? You know, the if heaven and hell decide that they both are satisfied, illuminate the nose on their vacancy signs. 100%. A Death Cab for Cutie knockoff. And so after he sings this, Willow says, cool. She's like, we need to go to sleep. And so they do. In chapter 14, Leeds is feeling guilty. Hey, whoa. Actually, he's able to feel some self-reflection. He's able to actually acknowledge his bad behavior. He's feeling a little guilty about his obsession with Willow. And he's like really trying to like hone it in and be like, okay, let me focus on my girlfriend who I bought an engagement ring for. Let me focus on her and try and like build this relationship, back up. It doesn't last very long. He tries to like talk about one thing, and she doesn't remember it. And so then immediately he's like, yeah, you know what? Actually, this isn't worth it. I think I want to buy this bed and breakfast so that I can keep building my relationship with Willow, because obviously my relationship with Layla is dead. They end up, I think Layla like falls asleep in the grand room or something. Willow inhabits her body, wakes up, and then she's like, yeah, Leeds, I've read every book in this room. And so they start talking about that. They like really hit it off and are talking about everything and just like really, vibing. And then a storm rolls in, lightning strikes. Layla all of a sudden like wakes up, like she gets snapped out of it. So she inhabits her body and she's like, what the fuck am I doing in the kitchen? Like, what are we doing talking right now? Like, I swear to God, I fell asleep on the couch. Like, what is happening? Starts having like a panic attack. Just as fast as the freaking out began, it stops because Willow like re-inhabits Layla's body. And yeah, that's horrifying. So he like kind of shepherds her up to bed and he's like, okay, let's just fall asleep together and I'll convince her tomorrow that she had a nightmare. And again, I just ask, can we please put ourselves in the position of the quote-unquote enemy in these Colleen Hoover books? For the love of God, write a like realistic or believable or likable, at the very least, character. Can't do it. There has never been a character that Colleen Hoover has ever written that was likable in any sense of the word. And so in the following chapter, we're back to the like interview portion, and the guy is like, so did Layla believe you the next morning when you told her that it was a nightmare? He says, I mean, kind of, sort of, yeah. I told her that she's just feeling tired all the time because of her brain injury and she's having all of these like terrible nightmares because of it. Full well knowing that Layla is actually tired because Willow is like inhabiting her body and making her stay up for hours at night. Hey, this son of a bitch knows that she's tired because he's abusing her body so that he can have a fling with a ghost, and instead convinces her that she's crazy and going like tired, delirium, insane because of her head injury and stuff. He's like, yeah, Layla, I'll schedule you an appointment with like a neurologist and all this other stuff because he doesn't want his relationship with Willow to end. And so they just keep it up. She keeps inhabiting Layla's body at night and they watch TV and movies and they talk like all night long. Leeds is like, yeah, we both felt really bad about, using her body to be together, but I think I'm falling in love with Willow. I think I am in love with Willow. This son of a In chapter 15, it's almost time for Leeds and Layla to go back to Nashville. They've almost spent their 2 weeks there, and Layla, understandably, is incredibly excited to get the fuck out of Dodge and to get back to civilization, to home, to feeling like normal. But of course, Leeds is feeling bad because Willow says that, I don't want to go back. Back to where? I ask. To nothing. I like being inside of Layla. Giggity. I like being inside of Layla. I like spending time with you. It gets harder every time that I have to leave her body. He is just getting more and more depressed the closer that they get to leaving Willow. And he's in the middle of like playing piano when he hears like random keys on the piano start playing. And so he realizes that Willow is obviously like trying to get his attention. And so he goes to the laptop, opens it up, and Willow types him the message saying, I have bad news. What? He asks aloud. Layla just found the ring. She's digging through my things? Yes. What did she do when she found it? She gasped, and then she put it back immediately and texted Aspen and told her about it. I say with a heavy breath. I wasn't ready for this. Not after I've spent the last 2.5 weeks using Layla the way that I've been using her. A proposal at this point would feel dishonest. Oh my God. Dude, okay, so again, at least there's like some self-awareness, but I feel like the self-awareness actually makes it worse. She doesn't know which day that you'll be proposing, so there's still an element of surprise there. You shouldn't let this upset you. It's not that. I say, I just don't think I'm ready, but now it's all that she's going to be thinking about. If you weren't ready, why did you bring the ring with you? I brought it with me because this trip was supposed to bring us closer together, but I feel even more distant than I did the day that we arrived. Is it my fault? No, I don't think what we're doing has helped, but it's not your fault. I didn't know that that's why you came here, and now I feel guilty for inserting myself into the narrative. I can stop. If you want to spend these last 2 days with Layla, I can disappear and you won't even know I'm here. You? Home? Wrecking ass bitch. A proposal shouldn't matter. You know that they're dating. You go into her body and you know how much that she loves him. And you still choose to do this. You were a little ghosty floating about when he pulled the wedding ring out of his shoe and put it in the closet to hide it from Layla. You know why he's here. You know the love that they have for each other. What do you again, home wrecking. It's fine. It's fine. Layla, obviously, is behaving differently now that she's seen the ring. She's extra cheerful. She's extra lovely and energetic and vibrant. And she like initiates spicy time with him. But Leeds is uninterested. He doesn't really care and he can't really focus because all he can think about is Willow. And so they go on to like do it. And instead of, I don't know, being in the moment, thinking about the woman that you wanted to propose to, thinking about your girlfriend who you thought was the love of your life, this motherfucker thinks of a ghost inhabiting his girlfriend's body. Okay, yeah, sure. So, again, chapter 15 ends with him coming to the terms that he loves the ghost and Layla. Obviously, you don't love Layla that much, my guy. My guy? That's not love. That's not love. I'm just saying. We go into chapter 16, and Leeds wakes up next to Layla, but it's not Layla, it's actually Willow. And she says, why do you think I'm able to touch things? What do you mean? I can move things when I'm not in Layla's body. I can touch things, but you can't see me and I can't even see myself, so I'm not made of matter. It doesn't make any sense. They go on this like whole philosophical back and forth, and she's like, I don't remember how long I was here. I don't know how long I've ever been here. And then he's like, yeah, you know, you've been here long enough to at least like scare away the homeowner. Like he's selling the place. Like that's why we came here. That's why we rented it out. And she's like, I was just pranking him. I didn't mean anything by it. Whatever. They go on this like whole pity fest that I'm not going to get into because I don't entertain cheaters, ghostly or otherwise. My tinnitus just hit this ear so bad. That was so weird. Oh my God. Anyway, so he goes on to like, I don't know, make her a cheese sandwich that she eats. And then he's like checking these forums again with the ghosts or with the paranormal people. And he gets an email from Jiffy Lube. I think it's like Haunted Inc. or some, what the hell is this guy's name? Hold on. Undercover Inc. is his username, but he's Jiffy Lube to me. He gets a message from Homeboy and he says, Leeds, it's been a while since you've been in the forum. I apologize if reaching out to you beyond the forum makes you uncomfortable, but I do have a talent for separating the wheat from the chaff. I believe you. and hope you can believe me in return. I can help your ghost. And dude like emailed leads directly, not on the forum, just like his like personal private email direct. So that's a little creepy. How did you get my email? Never communicate with someone through a cell phone if you're hoping to stay anonymous. I, however, have no interest in you or who you are, so there's no need to be concerned. I'm interested in your ghost. Did you find anything out about her? No. Are you still at the bed and breakfast? He knows where we're staying? He's like confused because he's like, I didn't put that in the forum that we were at a bed and breakfast. I just, left it pretty vague. So he's kind of, I don't know, concerned about this potential internet stalker, as one should be. She goes into this whole thing. She ends up like taking over Layla's body again to eat more food, and then again confronts him, and she's like, I don't want anybody to come here. I am happy being a ghost. I don't want this help. I don't want to cease to exist. Instead of all of that, instead of listening, doing the smart thing, he decides he's going to reply to the Undercover Inc. Jiffy Lube guy and say, yeah, we're at the bed and breakfast, come get us, and puts in an offer over asking price for the bed and breakfast. Doesn't tell Layla, doesn't tell Willow, doesn't even ask. Little Mr. Millionaire Moneybags over here just makes the executive decision that that's what he's going to do. He ends up at some point later that night, Willow is inhabiting Layla's body and they start like making out. And he's like, oh my God, this is just as good as the first time that I kissed Layla. And he goes to sleep knowing that he's just made everything more complicated. And this is where I would like to say that it's such a good callback to the first discussion that he has with Layla, where he's like, this is the best XYZ that I've ever had. And she's like, it's just because it's the most recent. And that's literally what happens right now. He starts making out with Willow and he's like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing ever, right? There's some follow through, there's some consistency, there's some interesting plot stuff that we'll talk about in a little bit, but I'm like, did CoHo cook? Did CoHo actually put some effort into this? I think she may have. So in chapter 17, he wakes up. The bed is empty. Layla's gone. He can't find his phone. He can't find his laptop. He can't find Layla. When he does find her, she's outside smoking a cigarette and she says, the realtor stopped by while you were asleep and he said that you put in an offer for this house. What the fuck, dude? You know I don't like it here and you didn't even tell me about this? Like, what is your problem? And he knew that she wouldn't be happy about it, but he also didn't expect her to be so freaking pissed. And so she starts like packing her bag. She's like, I don't like it here. You know I don't like it here. You don't listen to me. I don't want to be here. Like, literally everything. Starts throwing all of her stuff in bags, and about to take it to the car and leave him the house, and leads this manipulative, gaslighting son of a bitch. Says, I was gonna propose to you. Yeah. He says, I was going to surprise you tonight and propose to you. And I bought the house that we first met in because I thought it was romantic and I was going to propose to you and this was going to be this like really meaningful place for our relationship. I thought that you would be happy. She says, I saw the receipt. You bought the ring 6 months ago. What have you been waiting 6 months for? In which case, break, I would just like to say, why in the do you have the receipt with you? Why do you have the receipt with you? Part 2 to that, maybe I'm biased. My husband bought oh my God, did you hear my wrist? That didn't sound healthy. My husband bought my wedding ring. I sent him a link to okay, sorry. Hey, you're on my channel, fuck off. I sent my husband a link. I said, hey, this is the ring that I want. I said, this is the setting, this is the website, like this is my dream ring. I think I sent it to him like 2.5 years into our relationship. And I said, hey, homie, we're here. I'm cool with getting married. If you want to get married, here's the link to the ring that I want. Figure it out. And so he bought it like 2 or 3 months later, I think. And then he sat on it. He had the ring for 6 months. He took all the pictures. Have you seen those? Where it's like, he like took a picture with like the whiteboard with the date behind it, or he took it when I was like, doing something else in the same room and he had like the box open in the picture. He had a couple of those. It was so cute. He had like a little countdown to when he was going to propose to me. Long story short, he had the ring for 6 months. Some people just do that. You buy it when you get the chance to and then you wait for the right moment. I don't think him having it for 6 months is a red flag. Like, I think that's a stupid argument. And I think it's also a stupid argument that he had the receipt with get the ring? Why wouldn't you have a digital copy? Anyway, so this manipulative bastard gets away with it, and she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for ruining the moment. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't think that that's what was happening. And, tearfully apologizes, and he's like, feels bad about the dishonesty. You know what I mean? Like, he knows that he lied to her because he just didn't want her to leave and, ruin his chance of ever seeing Willow again. But he does give her the ring and goes along with it because, yeah, he can feel guilty, totally sure, but he loves Willow more than that. So Layla runs out of the room to call her sister, be happy about it. And he ends up finding his phone and his laptop tucked away in a drawer because Willow hid it for him because she was like, yeah, she was snooping through your stuff and I didn't think that you wanted her to find these things. You infidelity. I don't know what kind of descriptive words that I can use right now. You cheating asshole. All of you. The whole lot of you. The infidelity is crazy. And so Leeds just apologizes to Air, just hoping that Willow can hear him and that he's so sorry that he had to propose to Layla. And he hopes that Willow understands why he had to do it and why he proposed to Layla. But he knows that Willow's gonna be angry with him. And I'm supposed to feel bad for him? I'm supposed to feel bad for any of these people? I feel bad for the ghost, to a good degree, to a point. You're a lonely little ghosty soul floating about a house and you finally get attention from some guy. But also, hoe behavior. He has a girlfriend. So we go into chapter 18 and it's later that day and Leeds is getting super irritable because he knows that he shouldn't have proposed to Layla. So he takes it out on her and he's like, yeah, you should eat more. You're not eating enough. And she's like, I've literally gained 3 pounds since we went on this trip. I'm eating just fine. I'm freaking out about it actually. And he just ignores it. And he's also extra pissy because Willow hasn't talked to him that entire day, since he proposed to Layla. And he also goes on to be like, yeah, I did buy the house, but we don't have to live here. It can just be a vacation home or an investment property. But, we can go back to Nashville. I want to come here sometimes and we need to at least stay an extra week or 2 and then we can go back. And so Layla's like, yeah, totally, babe. I'm a freshly engaged woman. You can say whatever you want to me. You gave me everything I wanted, blah, 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 blah. She's been manipulated. Of course she's cool with it. Oh my God. So, oh, Jesus. I hate this man. I'm just going to read this to you, okay? I proposed to Layla today, so it only made sense to not push her away when she wanted to make love tonight. She took off all her clothes and said that she wanted me to make love to her while she wore only her engagement ring. I had to think about Willow again in order to get through it. Those are my punching noises in case you're not watching. I had to... Okay, sorry. Then, when it was over and Layla wanted to cuddle, I pretended she was Willow while I gently ran my hand up and down her arm until she fell asleep, as if she's not inhabiting your fiance's body. That was half an hour ago, and we're still in the same position. She's asleep on my chest. I'm staring up the ceiling, waiting for Willow to show up, hoping she shows up. I didn't call my mother to tell her that I proposed to Layla. I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of what it's going to do to Layla when I admit that I'm not in love with her anymore. Oh my God. So Willow inhabits Layla's body, takes off the engagement ring, and says, I don't like how it feels. And Leeds says she's prettier when you're inside of her. Attraction is strange. How can they use the same body, but my reaction to them is so different? How can sex with Layla earlier feel like a chore, but just looking at Willow feels like a reward? She's prettier when you're inside of her. Yeah. Those are punching noises again. Willow doesn't make eye contact. That's not really a compliment to me. It's not my body. She gets up and walks confidently across the room. She goes to the bathroom and closes the door. A few seconds later, I hear the shower running. She knows that I had sex with Layla tonight. She's washing that away. It has to be hard for Willow when I'm intimate with Layla, but I have to be physical with Layla to keep her here or I won't get to see Willow. It's the worst catch-22 imaginable. I can't break up with the girl I'm falling out of love with or I won't get to spend time with the girl I am falling in love with. When Willow's finished in the shower, she walks back to the bedroom wearing a towel. She drops it to the floor, pulls on a t-shirt, blah, blah, blah. She's hurting and it's my fault. I don't want to marry her, Willow. Then you shouldn't have proposed. What was I supposed to do? Let her leave? Yes. I didn't want her to take her last night together. What about after? tonight? What's going to happen if you buy the house? We'll have a scandalous affair whenever Layla is willing to come back here with you. I'll get to take over after I have to stand outside of your door and listen to you have sex with her. This isn't fair to me. You get us both in your world, but I don't get you all at all in mine. If I knew how to do it any differently, I would, but I'm not in love with Layla anymore, if that helps. Yes, you are. You're just confused. You showed up here in love with her, but I've made that complicated by using her body. It was complicated before we got here. I thought this place would change that, fix us somehow, but it just made it worse. You said yourself that I look sad when I'm with her. Willow lifts off of my chest and searches my eyes. What if that's my fault, though? If I wasn't here inserting myself into your life, you might have actually been able to reconnect with her. I'm not reading anything else because it's just gonna piss me off. But yeah, that's the logic that goes into it. Oh, actually, wait, hold on. Actually, I do need to read this. Hold on. Sorry. I was gonna chicken out and then I realized why I was reading. You ever do that? Anyway. Yep. Willow says, I want to know what happened that night. The night that Layla got shot by Sable. He says, can't you just look at Layla's memories? I want to hear your version. There's not much to tell. Sable shot Layla, then me when I entered the room, and I ran for the gun. So you shot her? I nod. Who was Sable to you? I dated her for a few months. Last year before I met Layla. But you broke up with her? Why? I thought it would end up being a one-night stand at first. But she kept coming around. I didn't do anything about it because I didn't mind the company, but before I knew it, she was posting pictures of us online, calling me her boyfriend, coming to every show. Garrett and the guys in the band thought that it was funny because they knew that I was dragging it out because I felt sorry for her. I let it continue for several weeks longer than I should have because I didn't want to upset her. But then she started taking things a little too far, and it left me with no choice but to break things off. Taking things too far in what way? She was upset that I wouldn't tell her that I loved her back after only knowing her for a couple of weeks. She was upset that I hadn't posted a picture of us together on Instagram. She got irrationally angry when I would tell her that I wasn't looking for anything serious, and then she would try to tell me all the reasons that she thought that I was wrong. In my head, we were only having fun. In her head, she was practically planning our wedding. When I finally did break up with her, she couldn't stop calling me. Then she came to one of our shows. She started screaming at me because I wouldn't take any of her calls. Garrett had to have her kicked out and wouldn't allow her at any future shows. I had to cut her off. I didn't know how else to deal with it. I thought she'd eventually get over it. Is that why she showed up at your house and did what she did? Because you had moved on with Layla? I don't know. Honestly, she was definitely upset by the picture that I had posted with Layla on Instagram, upset enough to reach out to Layla on social media, but the police said that she had a long list of diagnoses, some of which stemmed from childhood: depression, bulimia, bipolar disorder, you name it. And she wasn't taking her medication for any of it. Maybe that's why she did what she did, because she really wasn't stable. That had to have been terrifying for you guys. It was. Why does it seem like you feel guilty about it? I don't feel guilty for breaking up with her. I feel guilty for ending her life. You did what most people would do in your situation. She had an obsessive personality, and you were just a casualty of that. How are you supposed to know how deep it went, or that she had a fan club for you before you even met her? She leans into me a little, urging me to make eye contact with her. She forced you to take it as far as you did when she showed up at your house with a gun. That's not your fault. I don't talk about this to anyone, so it's nice to hear her say those words. I'm about to tell her thank you, but then my blood chills, freezes, shatters like tiny shards of glass exploding inside of me. The words that just came out of Willow's mouth are rushing through me, searching for a place to belong, but they don't belong. Her words don't belong in Layla's head. I never mentioned specifics about Sable to Layla. I never told Layla that Sable had a fan club. I've certainly never told Willow that Sable ran a fan club. How does Willow know anything about Sable? That's not something that she should know. I grab her wrist and sit up, rolling her onto her back. I squeeze my jaw, trying to piece together the puzzle that seems so complicated, but it's really simple. It's a puzzle that only consists of 3 pieces: me, Layla, and Sable. Is that why Willow is here? Because she's Sable in need of closure? If that's the case, why would she go by a different name? What? So he says, Willow, get the fuck out of Layla's body. Get out of her body. Turns into this whole thing. She scrambles away and runs away because she's afraid of him. He's yelling at her. He's getting aggressive. He's looming over her. So she runs downstairs, freaking out. And he's like, is that why it's so jumbled up? Is that why you can't remember anything? You can't recall Layla's memories because they're not hers? They're Sable's? Is that what's going on right now? He's like, what memories do you have? 2 versions of, Willow. what, you got like yours and Sable's? And she says, no, like I don't have any. When I'm outside of Layla's body, I don't know what's going on. He's like, why did you go by the name Willow then? Like, if you're Sable, why did you go by Willow? She's like, I don't know, it's just the name that came to me. It's this whole freaking chaotic, stupid shit. And he's like, why else would you know what Sable's memories are? She says, I don't know. If I was Sable, I'm not anymore, Leeds. I could never be capable of something like that. Starts sobbing, crying, and then starts screaming because she left Layla's body. So now Layla's back in Layla's body, screaming because she just woke up in the kitchen, feeling all of these feelings, not knowing how she ended up down there, and Leeds is like looming over her, and she's like, oh my God, I need my medication, screaming. She's like, I need my medication. I don't know what's happening. He's like, you don't need your medication. It's packed. We're leaving right now. Nothing is wrong with you. Get in the car. It's this house. Let's go. She doesn't get up because Willow inhabits Layla's body again. And he's like, Willow, get the fuck out of her body. And it's this like whole freaking dramatic thing. She fights to go back in. And then Willow's like, Layla's not going to want to stay here after this. Not after tonight. I know. This is the moment that I truly question myself as a boyfriend, a caretaker, a human being. I don't know why I feel so strongly about staying or why I feel so strongly about keeping Layla here with me. My behavior right now goes against every moral that I have, but I've never felt this kind of certainty in my gut. My gut is telling me this terrible decision I will pay off. What? My gut is telling me this terrible decision will pay off when it's all said and done, which means this is the moment I'll likely regret the most. We go back to the interview in current day, and the man says, I would like to speak to Willow. She comes down. Well, so then he grabs Layla from upstairs. Willow has inhabited her body, right? Takes her downstairs. She talks to Jiffy Lube. He's like, I don't know, what's going on? How's it going? How do you take over her body? Like, don't you think it's wrong to keep her captive? Lead says, I think captive is a strong word. And he says, okay, so like, does she know what's going on? Like, how are you going to explain to her what's happening to like make her stay here and be like quote unquote willing participant of what's going on? And Leeds tried to explain to her why she couldn't leave, but it didn't calm her down. So we thought the best way to get her to understand would be to show her. The man turns to me this time. And how did you do that? We go back to chapter 19. Leeds is having a super hard time coming to terms with this like Willow, Sable, Layla person. He continues to call her Willow because he just can't stand to call her Sable. Like, after all the obviously trying to unalive him and his girlfriend, he doesn't want to mention his ex-girlfriend's name. And this is like, I guess, the climactic point in the story where they're asleep that night. Layla wakes up, she's back in her body, and she starts freaking out. And she's like, oh my God, I can sense like something's wrong. Something is happening in this house. We need to leave right now. He's like, no, it was just a nightmare, baby. You don't know what's going on. Like, just go back to sleep. Like, just relax. She says, fuck you. Like, runs downstairs, grabs a knife, threatens him. She's like, we're leaving right now. Willow takes over her body. She drops the knife, falls to the ground just as quickly, right? Because Willow took over her body. Just as quickly, Willow leaves and she starts screaming again because she's like, what is happening? Yelling for help. Willow takes over her body again, and Willow and Leeds come to the decision that like they're gonna have to tie her up. Like, that's the only option to get to the bottom of what's going on. They're gonna have to tie her up. And Leeds knows that there's a chance that Layla will like never ever forgive him, but he's like, I don't know what to do. Yeah, I might go to prison. Yeah, she might hate me. Yeah, I might be totally wrong and hallucinating, but also my hot ghost girlfriend. Who would blame me? So Leeds and Willow come to the decision that the best way to explain to Layla about what is going on is to record her. Okay, so he gets his phone out, he's like recording. Willow goes into Layla's body. What's your name? Layla. Willow, I guess, in Layla's body. She says, Willow, are you a danger to Layla? No. Am I a danger to Layla? No. Am I holding Layla against her will? No. But I am, just for another day. Then it'll be over, Layla. Please don't be upset with Leeds for this. It's out of his control. What will happen if Layla tries to escape? You can't escape, Layla. Bro, the way that I would freak out. It's better just to wait this out as calmly as you can. So, stops the recording. And Willow's like, hey, she's gonna be really freaked out when she sees that. Leeds says, she's already scared. It's fine. We'll deal with it. Oh. Okay, yeah, sure. And that's the moment that the guy from the paranormal thing, Jiffy Lube, ends up messaging him, I'll be there shortly. I guess he emails him. He's like, I'll be there soon. Okay, cool. So Layla wakes up in her own body, and Leeds is like, I have to show you something, because she's tied up, and she wakes up freaking out because she's tied up, and he's like, hey, calm down, calm down, calm down, I have to show you something. Plays the video of Willow in Layla's body responding, and she's like, that's not me. I don't know what you've done to me, but that's not who I am. What the fuck is happening? Right? Oh my God. So that goes into chapter 21, and she's been just screaming constantly for more than a day, like after he shows her this video, and is accusing him of like drugging her and forcing her to say these things. And he's like, no, it's a spirit that inhabits your body. And again, I just would like everybody to put themselves in Layla's shoes for a second, whoever she may be, of how horrifying that this would be to happen. This is horrendous. A dude shows up, Jiffy Lube shows up, walks through the door, and he says, yeah, sorry, it's the only body that I could find when I came into town. Which also means that he's a spirit that is wandering around just doing crazy stuff, and he just strolled into town and found the first body that he could take over that just happened to be the Jiffy Lube guy. It's not even his body. That's not even who he is. What's happening? What do you mean? And so begins them recording and doing their interview. And that goes into chapter 22. I guess like the interviews in current day have all caught back up, right? So we're just in chapter 22 now. Here out, we're just in the chapters. We're not going back to any like interview stuff that goes on. His suggestion is for Willow to inhabit Leeds' body instead of Layla's to see if she can access like more memories or to see what's going on at all. So he gets possessed, I guess, by Willow's spirit, and she can't remember anything. She has nothing to say. She's like, I don't know. There's nothing coming to me. I can't remember anything here. Leaves his body, and he gets a moment of like clarity, self-reflection, where he says, oh my God, that actually felt really weird, and I just like blinked and it's 3 minutes later, and this is so disorienting and horrible, and I can't believe that I would do this to Layla. My guy just keeps doing it though. Obviously not that big of a deal to him. He's such a piece of shit. The only thing though, that like while she was in Leeds' body, Undercover Inc. Jiffy Lube guy was asking her questions, and one of the questions that he asked was, you know, what did Leeds think of Layla the night that they met? Like, can you think about that? Like, can you tell me maybe, see if you have any memories of that? And she replies, he thought that I was a terrible dancer. So with that, he ends the interview, right? Back in Lee's body. That's where the whole guilt thing comes in. And so he's like, hey, kind of weird that she said I instead of she. So he concludes that when Sable shot Layla and then he shot Sable and they both died at the same time, that in the few minutes that they were dead, before the paramedics revived them, their souls swapped. So Layla is actually Sable, and Willow is actually Layla. Okay, so at first, Leeds has a hard time believing this, right? He's like, that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. But then he's like, no, it makes sense. That's why I loved Willow so much, and I loved her so fast, and we came here, and I fell in love with her all over again, because that's who Layla really is, and that explains why I fell out of love with Sable Layla, because I never really loved her. And again, break, Colleen Hoover being a good writer, what's that about? Layla's obsession since the accident, the disordered eating habits, the obsession with social media, the like general anxiety and body image issues were like very, very briefly referenced in like chapter 1, and then became like a core descriptor of her after the accident, is like a pretty good callback. Even the like Instagram obsession linking to Sable running the fan club is pretty interesting. Like that's a pretty good like through line, I guess, of those characters, and relating them of like, yeah, you know, here's the breadcrumbs, the trail that like this is who she was this whole time. I thought that was actually like pretty decent writing. So yeah, that's the big reveal. Layla is Sable, Willow is Layla. And so they realize this, and he's like, okay, so how can we switch the souls back? Like, what can we do to fix it? Dude says, I don't know. You should just let Sable leave the house in Layla's body, and then you can just stay here with Layla's spirit, like with quote unquote Willow, Layla's spirit person thingy-majiggy, and just stay with her. Like, just let Sable leave though, because obviously, like, that's not, you know what I mean, who you want to be in love with. And he goes to sleep that night cradling Sable Layla, like whispering her name and not really knowing what to do next. How does somebody even think of this is my question. How does this even come up? How does one even think of any of this, dude? I don't get it. I do not get it. I hope any of this is making sense to you right now, because it was so hard to read. I was like, what are you talking about? We're in the home stretch. There's only like 3 more chapters. So in chapter 24, Leeds is washing Layla's hair. I guess I'll just use their names now. Willow is Layla, and then I'll just call Sable, even though she's like in Layla's body. You know what I'm saying? If you're tracking, you're tracking. We'll just say Lila. We'll just say Layla and Sable from now out, okay? So that night, he is washing Layla's hair in the shower. A wound cleaning scene. I know y'all are suckers for it. You know, and he's taking care of her, and he has stayed up all night trying to research, like, spirit swapping, soul swapping, but he hasn't found anything. And Layla is terrified to going back to being this, like, floating, lonely soul in this house all by herself. And Leeds is also like, I can't live without you. I can't go back to being in a relationship with Sable, Layla. I can't do this anymore. You're the one that I love. And so Layla decides the only way to fix this, the only way that we can do this, Leeds, is if you kill me. I need to die again. And then in that brief moment, we can like soul swap just like we did before. So you're gonna have to kill me. And then I'll just have to like swoop in, fight a bitch, and take over the vessel that is Layla, and then I'll be myself again, I guess. Yeah. But it has to happen just right. Otherwise you could lose me forever, because then my body will just be dead, obviously. And so, obviously, he refuses this at first because he's like, hey, don't really want to kill my girlfriend. Don't really need to add that to my rap sheet after all the craziness that's already happening. Maybe we don't need like another problem on it. But Layla's like, don't worry, like I'll figure it out. But we have to try. We have to do something. And if it doesn't work, we'll figure something else out. And I'm like, I don't think you would. If he kills his girlfriend and he's in prison, I don't think you'll just like find him again. Like, I don't think that's how that works. But sure. Chapter 25, Layla spends the next 2 days meticulously planning out her death. I've spent the last 2 days trying to find an alternative solution. Sadly, I found nothing. She continues to take over Sable, the less sleep that Sable gets. And when Layla does leave her body long enough for Sable to sleep, Sable sleeps very little, only when the meds kick in, and even then not for long. Sable continues to try to escape, which has resulted in her wrists suffering even more damage. And Aspen, the sister, and the brother-in-law, Chad, Kyle, end up visiting. It's the tail end of their trip. Aspen and Kyle come over again to come and visit. And so it's like extra imperative that they figure out this whole like unaliving thing. Aspen, of note, is a nurse, but also he's gonna have to try and kill his wife, girlfriend, person, fiance thing, and not get caught by the sister. Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. And so Aspen is there. You know, they're talking, they're having dinner. It's a good time. And so after dinner that night, Layla is, I don't know, cleaning up, doing something. And Aspen says, she seems different. I spin around at the sound of Aspen's voice. I thought that I was alone in the kitchen. What do you mean? Better. It's like I finally have my sister back. Good call bringing her here. I think it helped her. Yeah, she's definitely much better. She looks tired though, and she's lost weight. Right? So this is where I think Colleen Hoover is trying to convince me that Leeds is doing the right thing, right? Aspen, she was there at the beginning of the trip and she saw Sable in Layla's body and saw that she was like skittish and, you know, whatever. And then now at the end of it, when Layla is back in Layla's body, Willow's in Layla's body, whatever, that it's like, yeah, she's my sister again. I'm so happy to have her. I haven't seen her in months. And so this is supposed to like justify his behavior or whatever. Not for me. Not for me. Not the one. You can't trick me. He's still a piece of shit. So they have this conversation though. They're, I don't know, after dinner, I guess they're like drinking by the pool, just vibing. Chad Kyle jumps into the pool. Pool water splashes on Layla. So Sable re-inhabits, takes over, gets back in to Layla's body. So now we're back to Sable Layla. I feel like I'm on drugs right now. And she starts screaming. She's like, oh my God, he kidnapped me. He's keeping me prisoner here. He's got me chained up upstairs. This is so crazy. She's like, don't you dare come near me. Aspen comes running over. She's like, hey, what the f is going on? Immediately, Layla gets back into Layla's body. Willow gets back into Layla's body, whatever. And she's like, it was just a joke. I'm just kidding, I guess. Like, quirky, cute girl thing, you know? She's like, yeah, just kidding. Aspen's like, what? Yeah, it's just a joke. It's just a joke, guys. Aspen and Chad are both like, that's like really weird to joke about, and that's not funny at all. And Aspen says, I don't think it's a joke. Show me your wrists. Layla tucks her sleeves beneath her thumb and pulls her hand away. It was an inside joke. Tell her, Leeds. Yeah, she's right. It's a weird inside joke. It's only funny to us. Aspen stares at Layla in disbelief and then brings her hands to her forehead as if she doesn't know what to make of the last minute of her life. She shakes her head, confused, unconvinced. Come inside the house with me, Layla, she says, reaching out to her sister. Aspen, I know that was weird. I'm sorry. I do things that I can't explain sometimes. Because of the brain injury, I thought it would be a funny joke. It fell flat. Aspen studies her sister's face, looking for a sign, a silent plea for help, maybe. This is seriously up, she says. Then she pushes past us and heads into the house. And then they both go into the house. And this crazy Layla says, we're doing it tonight. How are we supposed to do this tonight? Your sister's here. I think drowning would be the easiest way. We'd have to time it perfectly. You'd have to make sure that my heart stops before you start to resuscitate me. I don't know that I feel comfortable. I don't even know how to do CPR. Aspen's a nurse. Aspen won't go along with this. She doesn't have to. We'll play it off like it isn't planned, like it's an accident. As soon as my heart stops beating, you'll yell for her. I made sure one of their bedroom windows is open, so she'll hear you. And if she doesn't, just run to the window and wake her up. You already had this planned out? Don't judge me. You have no idea what it's like for me. There's a world of pain in her expression like I've never seen. I don't even know how to argue against that pain. She's right. I don't know what it's like for her. I won't even pretend to know. All I can do at this point is love her enough to attempt to trust her instincts. What if I can't bring you back right away? What happens if the ambulance takes your body away before you're able to slip back in? Don't let them. Just make sure Aspen is the one that brings me back. How do you know Aspen will know what to do? She's a nurse. She saves lives every day. What if it works and we bring your body back? How do we know Sable won't come back instead of you? I won't let her, Leeds. I love you so much. That's how I know that this is going to work. Which to me, I read that and I was like, she's just gonna fight it. Imagine just like ghosties going at it like over a body. How else are you gonna make sure she doesn't take over the body? Unless y'all are gonna be like fighting to the like metaphysical death, I guess, over who's gonna take over it. What do you mean? How do you know she's not gonna? She's not already in it? If she's already in the body, if you kill it, will she not just remain there for a little bit? Are all of our souls just like floating about? What do you mean? What? Hello? Is she just gonna like rip the bitch's soul out of her? I would love to know I guess it's not the physics. I guess it's the physics. What do I know? What do I know? I'm not a ghost, but I would love to know Colleen Hoover's vision, you know? That's how I picture it. If I'm going down with a fight. I'm just saying. Chapter 26. Leeds and Layla write out their plan for the death for some reason. She wrote down instructions and is making me study them like this is some kind of college exit exam. I feel like we shouldn't write down murder plots. Number 1, hold me under until I'm no longer struggling for air. Number 2, check my pulse. When it stops, call 911 immediately. Number 3, wake up Aspen. Number 4, start resuscitation. Number 5, you only have 5 minutes to save my life. 5 minutes. I can't read it again. Do you need more time to look it over? I'm gonna need years before I'm ready to do this. Whatever. He says he's nervous and he's like, I'll love you forever. They go out to the pool where they had their first kiss and they kiss again and then he drowns her. Literally, like, he gets in the pool, he starts to, but he's like, I can't do this to you. I love you so much. And in that moment, like, Sable re-inhabits the body and starts screaming and freaking out. And he's like, oh, this is so much easier. Just drowns her. Because it's, like, easier to drown Sable, I guess. Arguably, sure. I mean, she, like, shot you and your girlfriend. But, like, maybe it's the empath in me. I just feel like it should never be that easy to kill somebody. I mean, he's like, oh, Sable? What do you mean? So he pushes her down until she stops breathing. She stops moving. He calls Aspen. The cops come, or the ambulance or whatever, and takes her away. Okay, what do you want? Chapter 27. It's the final chapter of the book. It's been 38 minutes since I pulled her out of the water. I'm pacing the waiting room. Chad, Kyle, is several feet away on his phone, probably trying to call Aspen. We haven't seen her since we walked out of the emergency room. No one is able to tell us anything. 39 minutes, 40. Chad hangs up the phone. I rush over to him, hoping that he's got word from Aspen. He just shakes his head. She's not answering. I think she's left her phone at the house. Blah, blah, blah. Back and forth. Aspen comes down. She starts crying hysterically. She's like, why? Why did you do this to my sister? What did you do? There's nothing that I can say or do to take that assumption away from Aspen. Too much has happened tonight to make her believe that I'm innocent. And if Layla doesn't make it, neither do I. What? Hold on, I'm sorry. There's nothing I can say or do to make that assumption, to take that assumption away from Aspen. Too much has happened tonight to make her believe I'm innocent. And if Layla doesn't make it, neither do I. Neither do I what? Neither do I what? Because no one will ever accept the truth. If this were last month, I wouldn't have believed the truth either. But the idea that Aspen will never trust me again, even if Layla makes it, is not an outcome I'm okay with. So then Aspen, respect somebody in a Colleen Hoover book has a brain, says, why did Layla say that you were keeping her tied up earlier? Why would she say that? I open my mouth in an attempt to explain, but I have no answer. I clamp it shut and my jaw hardens. Leads? The voice comes from behind me. I stand up and spin around. At the same time, Aspen jumps out of the chair. A doctor is standing at the entrance to the waiting room. Leads Gabriel, he says. I can't help but feel relief that this man is sparing me from an explanation that I wasn't able to give at Aspen, but I'm afraid that he's here to deliver news that I'm not prepared for. I step forward. Is she okay? She's asking for you. So he goes into the room and he's thinking, is she Layla? Aspen pushes past me and rushes to her bedside. Aspen is crying, hugging her, but Layla isn't looking at Aspen. She's looking straight at me. There's no emotion on her face, no way to tell that if I'm staring at Layla right now or if I'm staring at Sable. I want to believe that it's Layla because I feel like it's Layla. I'm just too scared to trust my instinct right now. I need her to say something. Layla? My voice is a whisper. A question. A single tear falls out of her eye and rolls down her cheek. She nods barely. Leads, do you know what you look like right now? I shake my head. Her mouth curls into a smile. You look like you're dying inside. That statement becomes the only proof that I need. That's what she said when he was playing music at the wedding. I rush to her. Slipping between Aspen and the bed, I lower the rail and I crawl into bed with her and I hold her while she clings to me. I kiss her over and over, all over her face, her hands, the top of her head. She's crying, but she's also laughing. We did it, she says. I sigh, pressing my cheek to hers. We did it, Layla. I wipe tears from her cheeks. Say that again. Say my name again. Layla, I whisper. Layla, Layla, Layla. She kisses me. Layla. Kisses me. Layla. That's how the book ends. There's an epilogue. I don't give a fuck to read it. If you know me, you know I don't read epilogues. Hello? What do you mean? So is Sable now just like floating? Is Sable now just floating in this fucking bed and breakfast that you bought? Because you bought it. Are you gonna have to deal with her ghosty every single time that you guys go there? Is she going to now inhabit Layla's body every time that she goes to sleep? Are we about to like have this like repeating cycle? What do you mean? What do you mean? Is she just gonna haunt y'all's ass every time that you go to Corazon de País? You bought the place. Is she just gonna be there forever? What is happening? This is so stupid. But it might have been a little good. It might have been a little interesting. Again, we're brought back to the idea that like CoHo books suck in a way that I can't explain, but the idea, like the overarching idea is that they're like kind of interesting, kind of fascinating, kind of love the idea. If you made these people likable and believable, and I don't know, if you let it cooked a little bit longer, it might have been interesting. And if you didn't just make them absolutely terrible pieces of shit that are like the worst human beings on the planet, I might actually be fascinated. I might enjoy myself. And so I found myself doing that with this book and I was like, whoa. But again, she kind of tied it. There was the little breadcrumbs, these little trails, these little hints that Layla was Sable after the traumatic brain injury, right? There was some good connectors. It was a good little twisty bit. Jiffy Lube guy being another ghost was a good little twisty bit. Like, the idea is there. This, again, I think this was Colleen Hoover's best book in terms of being interesting. I guess all of her books, I'm not trying to like glaze this, obviously, but like all of her books are interesting and have interesting plots and like are good in theory, but they're obviously like, it's never like executed in a great way. I think this was the most interesting. I think this was the most unique, and I really think that she needs to pursue a career in more of like thriller, suspense, romance writing and get out of like traditional romance or whatever the frick she wants to market herself as usually. And I know a lot of it, again, stems from being like self-published. Like, that's a huge reason for her popularity, but that's also simultaneously a huge reason why there is issues with her writing. I don't know. I wish she had a team. I wish she had a team that helped her, that gave her honest, genuine feedback and helped her grow. I wish she was a ghostwriter and just gave ideas to people and like co-wrote more stuff. Maybe not with Taryn Fisher, no offense. But maybe like co-wrote stuff and let somebody else kind of take her ideas and take the reins and like make something good out of it. Because this could have been great. This could have been the next Frida, the housemaid. Oh my God, what is Frida's last name? This could have been the next Frida McFadden, right? Colleen Hoover could 100% be in like Frida McFadden's caliber of thriller, suspenseful stuff if she had the right team behind her. The ideas are there. The execution is not, and it hurts me. But like, I don't know. I'm rambling. It's fine. Whatever. This was better than the other bullshit that I tried reading at the beginning of the week. That's all I can ask for. Next week, I think I'm going to do Evelyn Hugo. That was something that you guys voted for a couple of probably months ago by now. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid was something that you guys voted on forever ago. So I will probably do that next week. And then next week, I'm going to do a video of the Bronte sisters. So like Charlotte, Emily, and Anne Bronte, which is like Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights, and The Tenant at Westerfall. I don't know Anne's novel, but I'm going to do a whole thing about them. I've decided. I've been doing research all week and I'm fascinated by these women. So that's going to be Monday. We're just going to do a little, it'll probably end up being longer, but it'll be like a maybe like 20-30 minute thing dedicated to each of their novels and kind of discussing the Bronte sisters. And then Evelyn Hugo, I'm thinking, and then we'll figure it out. We'll do some more polls, and then hopefully it's not absolute bullshit books that I hate with my entire soul. Hopefully it's something that I can actually read, not hate my life. It's fine. It's fine. You guys are great. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for the support. You guys have been phenomenal. I'm so thankful. I'm so blessed. I love all of you so dearly, and I cannot wait to continue making videos for you. Like, comment, subscribe. Become a member if you want to. I'll be doing another video next week or the week after, I guess, that is members exclusive, talking about books that I read in the first quarter of the year. My January through March reads, give a brief overview of everything that I read, what I liked and didn't like, things like that. So if you would like to become a member, it's in the description box below. Otherwise, obviously, if you're hearing me say this right now, it is more than enough support, and I'm incredibly grateful for every single one of you. And yeah. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye!